Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, please subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin.
The rain had followed Clara Moore all the way home, drumming against her windshield like impatient fingers. It was past midnight when she turned into the driveway, the headlights sweeping across the wet siding of the house that still smelled faintly of her husband's cologne. 2 years, and she still hadn't been able to scrub it out of the wood. Inside, everything felt exactly as she'd left it. Too quiet, too clean, too empty. She tossed her keys on the counter, kicked off her heels, and told herself she'd stop imagining him standing at the end of the hallway. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, and for a moment, the silence seemed to breathe. Then she saw it, a faint glow leaking from the crack under the basement door. Her stomach tightened. She'd switched every light off that morning. The basement should have been dark. Maybe a power surge, she told herself. Maybe the motion sensor caught the cat, except she'd given the cat away months ago. The first creak of the basement steps echoed too loudly. She paused halfway down, flashlight trembling in her hand. The concrete floor glistened with moisture from the storm. The single bulb overhead flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. "Hello." Her voice barely left her throat. Nothing answered, only the slow drip of water from a leaking pipe. She descended the last few steps. Everything was where she remembered. The dusty workbench, the stacked boxes labeled Ethan's tools, the smell of old wood and metal. She moved toward the far corner, the one she'd avoided for years. The light flickered again, off, then on, and in that split second of darkness, she heard something roll across the floor. When illumination returned, she saw it resting by her shoe. A leather wallet, brown, worn at the edges, speckled with dust yet strangely clean. Her breath hitched. She crouched, picked it up, turned it over. The stitching on the side, the small scratch shaped like an L, she knew them all by touch. Ethan's wallet. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The police had searched for it. It was supposed to have vanished the same night he did. She opened it with shaking fingers. His driver's license. A folded photo of them on their wedding day. A receipt dated 2 weeks before he disappeared. She dropped it as if it had burned her. The echo filled the basement. Something wasn't right. The wallet wasn't dusty enough to have been here for 2 years. Someone had placed it recently. Her gaze drifted across the cinder block wall behind the workbench. One section stood out, smooth, lighter gray, the cement still showing faint tool marks. She walked closer and laid her palm against it. Cold. Too cold. She wrapped her knuckles against the surface. The sound came back hollow. For a heartbeat, she thought she heard a soft knock in return from the other side. She stumbled back, eyes wide, heart clawing at her ribs. The bulb above her buzzed violently, flashing so fast it painted the room in jerky frames of light and shadow. Clara backed up the steps, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the wallet like proof that reality had cracked open. At the top, she turned and stared down into the trembling light below. It steadied for a moment, glowing softly, almost calm. Then, without warning, it snapped off, plunging the basement into perfect, suffocating black. Only the sound of rain remained, and beneath it, faint and steady, came 3 dull thuds from inside the wall. She froze, listening. The last echo faded into silence. Then a whisper of dust drifted from the smooth gray patch, like the wall itself had taken a breath. Clara slammed the basement door shut, pressed her back against it, and looked down at the wallet in her trembling hand. 2 years of grief, guilt, and questions crowded into a single thought that made her skin crawl. He never left the house. Clara didn't sleep that night. The wallet lay on the kitchen table like evidence from someone else's life. Each time she looked at it, new questions crept in. Who put it there? Why now? And, most of all, what was behind that wall? At 3 a.m., the rain stopped. The sudden silence made the house feel smaller, as if the walls had moved closer while she wasn't looking. She poured herself coffee just to have something hot to hold. Her fingers still smelled faintly of cement dust. When the first light of morning bled through the curtains, she dialed the police station. Her voice cracked. "Detective Reese, please." The receptionist told her he was off duty until Monday. 2 days away. Clara almost hung up, but something inside her whispered, "You can't wait." By noon, she was back in the basement, flashlight and camera in hand. The bulb overhead was burned out now. The switch did nothing. She felt the familiar tug between fear and obsession. The same feeling that had driven her through endless sleepless nights after Ethan vanished. She crouched near the patched section of wall. In the daylight seeping through the narrow window, she could see the uneven texture she hadn't noticed before. Whoever repaired it hadn't matched the color exactly. Beneath the gray, the older bricks looked almost yellow. She brushed away a layer of dust, revealing faint tool marks, fresh, crisp lines, not 2 years old. Her phone camera clicked softly. The flash illuminated the wall for a fraction of a second, and she imagined a hand pressing back from the other side. "Get a grip," she whispered. Her voice sounded too loud. On the workbench, she found Ethan's old hammer. The handle still fit perfectly in her palm. For a long moment, she just stared at it. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she lifted it and struck the wall once, hard. The clang echoed like a gunshot. Dust puffed out, hanging in the air. She hit it again, smaller flakes tumbling down. A faint smell drifted out, damp, metallic, unpleasantly sweet. Her phone buzzed suddenly, shattering the silence. She jumped, almost dropping the hammer. The screen flashed an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Nothing. Then a faint hiss. And beneath it, a melody. Piano notes, slow and familiar. Her wedding song. The line went dead. Clara's knees weakened. She stared at the phone until the screen dimmed, then looked back at the wall. Her heart pounded in uneven bursts. A noise broke from above, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crossing the living room floor. She froze, listening. Another step, and another. "Hello," she called, her voice trembling. No reply. She climbed halfway up the stairs, the wood creaking under her bare feet. The sound stopped. When she reached the door at the top, it was still closed. She turned the handle and pushed it open. Nothing. The living room was empty. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock on the mantel. She turned back toward the basement and stopped. The door frame was dusted with gray powder. She rubbed her fingers against it. Cement dust. Fresh. Someone had been down there after her. The hammer slipped from her grip and clattered down the steps. The noise seemed to wake the whole house. For a second, she imagined Ethan's voice calling from below, muffled by the wall, begging her not to look. Instead, she closed the door and slid the deadbolt into place. Her reflection in the small glass pane looked pale, hollow-eyed, older than 34. The wallet was still in her hand. She pressed it to her chest. "Whatever you were hiding, Ethan," she whispered, "I'm going to find it." Outside, thunder rolled again, distant but growing closer. Somewhere beneath her feet, deep in the concrete, something made a slow, cracking sound, like air escaping a sealed room. Morning sunlight crept across the kitchen tiles, touching the wallet where Clara had left it beside a half-finished cup of coffee. She hadn't gone upstairs. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard those 3 dull knocks from the wall. She opened the wallet again. Inside the plastic sleeve sat Ethan's license, the photo of them on their honeymoon, a faded receipt from a hardware store. The date, 2 days before he vanished. She whispered the address under her breath, memorizing it like a secret code. The drive across town felt strangely unreal. Clouds dragged across the sky, and her reflection in the windshield looked like someone older, someone still half asleep in grief. The hardware store hadn't changed. Same cracked sign, same scent of sawdust and oil. The clerk, a man in his 50s, peered at the receipt. "Yeah, I remember him," he said slowly. "Bought a trowel, cement mix, gloves. Big order. Said he was fixing something under the house." "Did he come alone?" Clara asked. The man hesitated. "No, Detective Reese was with him. They loaded everything together." For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the sound of her pulse. Reese, the same detective who'd handled the disappearance? The same man who'd comforted her through sleepless nights, and told her some things are better left unsolved? She forced a smile, thanked the clerk, and walked back to her car on unsteady legs. The air outside tasted like metal. At home, she spread the wallet's contents on the table. License, photo, receipt. Evidence. Proof that Ethan had met with Reese before he vanished. Her fingers hovered over the phone, ready to call the station, but stopped. If Reese was involved, who could she trust? That night, she poured a glass of wine and turned on the news, hoping for noise to drown the thoughts. The reporter's voice blurred until a single phrase cut through. Police are reopening the case of missing contractor Ethan Moore. She froze. The anchor mentioned that new evidence had been submitted anonymously that morning. Clara's heart jumped. She hadn't sent anything. So who had? A knock at the front door made her spill her wine. 3 soft taps. She stepped closer, listening. Mrs. Moore, a voice called. Female. Officer Brooks, ma'am. Detective Reese asked me to check on you. Through the glass, Clara saw a young woman in uniform, rain dripping from her cap. Cautiously, she opened the door. I'm fine, Clara said. Brooks gave a sympathetic smile. He said you might be frightened. He's worried about you staying here alone. Clara studied her eyes, steady, honest, too young to be lying. Tell him I'm fine, she repeated. When the officer left, Clara locked the door and leaned against it, shaking. If Reese had sent someone to check on her, it meant he knew she'd found something. She went to the basement one last time that night. The air felt heavier now, colder, as if the house itself were holding its breath. The patched wall loomed in the flashlight beam, the gray surface streaked with faint moisture. She whispered into the stillness. Ethan, what did you do? No answer, only the drip of water and the hum of the storm outside. She crouched beside the workbench and traced her finger over the newer cement, feeling the subtle ridge where it met the old brick. Beneath her touch, she thought she felt a faint vibration, like a heartbeat caught inside the wall. Clara backed away, her mind racing with what the hardware clerk had said. Ethan and Reese. The cement. The missing years. Somewhere upstairs, her phone vibrated on the counter. When she picked it up, there was a new text from an unknown number. Stop digging. The screen dimmed. Thunder rolled overhead. And down in the basement, the light flickered twice, like a warning. The morning after the anonymous text, Clara couldn't tell if she'd actually slept. Her phone lay on the nightstand like a threat. The words "stop digging" burned into her thoughts. She replayed the night's events again and again. The flickering light, the text, the silence that followed. By mid-morning, the rain had returned. She carried her mug of coffee down to the basement, forcing herself to face it in daylight. The air down there was cool, carrying the smell of damp concrete and iron. The patched section looked even more obvious now, smooth gray against the older yellow bricks, as if it belonged to another house entirely. She crouched beside it, tracing the seam where new cement met old. A tiny hairline crack ran across the center, thin as a pencil line. When she pressed her ear against the surface, the wall gave back a faint hum, the kind of hollow resonance a builder would recognize immediately. Her architect's mind started cataloging possibilities. A repair over a vent? A sealed access point? But the measurements made no sense. It was too tall, too wide. She fetched Ethan's measuring tape from the workbench. The wall segment was just under 6 feet high, a little over 2 feet wide, like a narrow alcove filled in hastily. The realization made her stomach twist. Footsteps echoed overhead. She froze, listening. A knock at the door followed. Upstairs stood Mr. Grant, her elderly neighbor, raincoat buttoned to his chin. His gray eyes looked troubled. "Forgive me, Clara," he said. "I heard hammering last night. I was doing some repairs." He shook his head. "That patch down there, it isn't new to you, is it?" Her heart skipped. "You've seen it before?" He hesitated. "Ethan worked late down there a few nights before he disappeared. I remember because I saw another car parked out front. Police car, I think. The next morning, he told me not to worry if I heard strange noises. Said he was fixing a leak." The mention of a police car made her skin prickle. "Reese again. Always Reese. Did you ever tell anyone?" she asked. He sighed. "No one wanted to listen. They said I imagined it." After he left, Clara stood by the window, watching him disappear into the rain. Her thoughts spun faster now. The hardware store receipt, the car, the patch. That evening she went back to the basement with a notebook. She mapped the layout of the wall, marked every crack, every discoloration. The more she studied it, the clearer it became. Whoever sealed it hadn't known proper restoration technique. The edges were uneven, the mortar inconsistent, the kind of rushed job done by someone trying to hide work, not preserve it. She decided to test a small section. Using a flat screwdriver, she pried gently at the corner where the cement met brick. The tip slipped in deeper than expected. A faint puff of stale air escaped, carrying the smell of earth and rust. She coughed, waving the dust away. Then she noticed something glinting inside the narrow gap. A fragment of metal, barely visible. She hooked it with the screwdriver and pulled. A small object tumbled out and clinked on the floor. A button, brass, with a worn engraving that looked like part of a police insignia. Her hands trembled. She set it on the workbench, staring at it under the flashlight. It was corroded but recognizable, exactly like the buttons on Reese's coat. A sudden vibration buzzed through the floor. Her phone again. Another message. "We warned you." The lights flickered once more, plunging the basement into half-darkness. Clara's breath quickened. She turned off the flashlight and stood very still, listening. From somewhere beyond the wall came a low, rhythmic tapping. 3 beats, then silence. 3 beats again, slower, deliberate. Not random. Almost human. She stumbled backward toward the stairs, never taking her eyes off the patch. The tapping stopped, replaced by a single, hollow thud, heavier than the rest, like something had fallen against the bricks. Her coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered. She ran up the steps and slammed the door, her pulse roaring in her ears. The sound below stopped instantly, as if the house itself were waiting. Clara pressed her palms to the door, whispering into the stillness, "I'm not stopping." And downstairs, the light blinked once, as though the house had heard her. Clara woke to a pounding headache and the sound of rain hammering the windows. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Her dreams had been full of muffled voices and a wall that breathed. Her phone buzzed again. Detective Reese. The name made her heart clench. She hesitated before answering. "Clara." His voice came smooth, controlled, almost too calm. "I heard you've been asking questions. I thought we agreed you'd let the department handle things." "I found Ethan's wallet," she said flatly. "In my basement." A pause. "That's impossible. We searched that place top to bottom." "Then you missed something," she snapped. There was another long silence. Then Reese sighed. "I'll come by this evening. We'll look together. Don't touch anything until then." He hung up before she could reply. All day the house seemed to listen with her. She heard faint groans from the pipes, a steady drip from somewhere behind the walls. At one point she caught herself whispering to the air, "I'm not crazy. I know what I heard." By late afternoon, thunderclouds rolled in again. She brewed coffee she didn't drink and watched from the front window as a dark sedan pulled into her driveway. Reese stepped out, tall, sharp suit, that same unshakable calm she used to find reassuring. Now it looked like armor. He smiled when she opened the door. "You look tired." "I've been busy," she said. They walked downstairs together. His polished shoes left wet prints on the steps. When the flashlight beam hit the patched wall, his expression didn't change, but something in his eyes tightened. "You see," she said, "that cement isn't 2 years old." He crouched down, touching the surface. "Could be moisture. Old basements do this." "I'm not stupid, Reese. Look at the color difference. The edges." "Clara," he straightened up, exhaling. "You've been through hell. I understand wanting answers, but sometimes—" "Stop talking to me like a patient." The words came sharper than she meant. Reese studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. Suppose you're right. Suppose someone did come back here. Why would they patch this wall? What's behind it? That's what I'm trying to find out." His eyes drifted toward the workbench, the brass button still lying there. He picked it up between 2 fingers. "Where did you get this?" "It fell out of the wall." He turned it over, jaw tightening. "You should have called me immediately. I didn't think you'd answer." For the first time, his calm cracked. "You think I—" He stopped himself, took a breath. Clara, people start seeing patterns when they grieve too long. Please, let me take this button to the lab. I'll have it analyzed. I want to see the report, she said. He nodded once. Of course. When he left, the basement felt heavier, as though the air had thickened behind him. She watched from the window as he got into his car. He didn't drive away immediately, just sat there, headlights off, hands on the wheel. After a minute, the taillights flicked on and the car rolled down the street, swallowed by rain. Clara turned off the lights and went back downstairs. The wall looked darker now, almost pulsing in the dim glow. She pressed her palm against it. Cold. Too cold. In the silence, her phone vibrated again. A new message. No number, just gray text bubbles. He knows you saw the button. She froze. The sender's icon showed no name, only a single letter. E. Her breath caught. For the first time since Ethan disappeared, she whispered his name out loud. Ethan. The phone buzzed once more, the same number. Another message appeared. Don't trust the detective. The lights flickered. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming like footsteps on the roof. Clara stared at the message, her reflection ghostly in the phone screen. Then, one final text. Check the foundation. Under the stairs. She turned toward the basement steps, every nerve in her body awake. The house creaked. The air shifted, and behind her, something scraped softly against the cement, like fingers brushing a wall. The message from E wouldn't leave her mind. Check the foundation. Under the stairs. Clara stood frozen at the top of the basement steps, the phone still glowing in her hand. The house felt too quiet, like it was waiting for her to move. She grabbed a flashlight, took a breath, and descended. Each step creaked under her weight. The beam of light trembled slightly in her hand as she reached the bottom. The air smelled faintly metallic now, mixed with damp stone. The stairs themselves were old, wooden treads bolted into a concrete frame. She crouched and shone the light underneath. Dust, cobwebs, and a single patch of darker concrete caught her attention. The rest of the foundation was smooth, but this part, rough, uneven, and freshly sealed, was almost hidden by the lowest step. She tapped the spot gently. Hollow. Her heart skipped. Clara slid the flashlight onto the floor, its light bouncing across the basement like a trembling heartbeat. She grabbed the same screwdriver she'd used before and wedged it into the edge of the patch. A crack split across the surface with a sharp snap. More dust fell. Behind her, the pipes moaned. She froze, listening, nothing but the slow, distant drip of water. Bit by bit, she widened the opening until her fingers brushed something that wasn't concrete. It felt like fabric, soft, frayed, damp. She pulled harder, and something fluttered free, a folded piece of paper sealed inside a plastic sleeve. Her pulse hammered. The sleeve was covered in grit, but she could still read Ethan's handwriting through it. If you're reading this, they found me. Her throat tightened. She peeled the sleeve open carefully, sliding the note free. Ethan's writing was rushed, uneven, smudged by moisture. Clara, if you ever see this, don't trust Reese. He's not investigating me. He's covering it up. I thought I could protect us, but he's deeper than I knew. They're watching the house. Whatever happens, don't dig any further alone. Get help. And if you find what I left in the wall, don't open it until you're safe. The wall. The patched section. Her knees went weak. A floorboard creaked overhead. She shot up, clutching the note. Hello, she called. Silence. Then another creak, closer to the top of the stairs. Someone was inside. She killed a flashlight. The darkness swallowed her, but she could still see a faint glow from above, the living room light flicking on. Her heart pounded so hard she thought whoever was up there could hear it. The footsteps descended 2 steps, then stopped. She held her breath, gripping the screwdriver like a weapon. A voice drifted down, calm and low. Clara? It's Reese. I forgot my umbrella. The same steady tone he used in interviews, the one that always sounded like truth. But her phone vibrated again in her pocket. One more text from the same unknown number. He's lying. Don't let him in. Clara stared toward the stairwell, torn between fear and disbelief. Reese's shadow stretched down the wall, long and warped by the overhead light. Clara, he said again, taking another step. We need to talk. She backed deeper into the basement, clutching Ethan's note. "Stay where you are," she said, voice trembling. Reese sighed almost sadly. "I wish you hadn't found that." And then the light at the top of the stairs clicked off. Darkness swallowed everything. The next morning dawned gray, swallowing the house in a dull haze. Clara hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face, not smiling like in their wedding photos, but pale and blurred behind that sealed patch of wall. The air in the basement felt heavier when she returned. The bulb flickered faintly, casting long shadows that crawled up the cement. Her fingers traced the faint line where the fresh patch began, smoother than the rest of the wall, the color just slightly lighter. Someone had tried to hide this in a hurry. Her pulse pounded in her ears. "Okay," she whispered, as if steadying herself for surgery. She fetched a hammer and chisel from Ethan's old toolbox. The tool smelled faintly of machine oil and dust. Her hand trembled as she raised the hammer for the first strike. The sound exploded through the silence. Sharp, violent, final. Concrete splintered. A small piece fell away. Another hit, then another. The rhythm took over, each strike pushing her fear further back. Dust filled the air, and soon her eyes watered. When she stopped to breathe, there was already a small hole. Cold air leaked from behind it. Damp, stale, almost metallic. She leaned closer, shining her phone's flashlight inside. There was space back there. "Ethan," she whispered. Her heart hammered as she widened the opening, the dust clinging to her sweat. Then the chisel hit something hollow. Wood. She cleared more of the wall until she saw it. The edge of an old wooden door, cemented shut from the outside. She stepped back, covering her mouth. Who builds a door only to bury it? Something shifted in the silence. A faint thud, like the echo of movement from deep within. She froze, holding her breath. It came again, softer this time, like something falling. Her mind raced through possibilities. Pipes, loose bricks, rats, but none of them made sense. Then she noticed something wedged in the seam near the top of the door. A small plastic tag, coated in dust. She pulled it free. A USB drive. It was old, scratched, but intact. Her breath hitched. Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her jump. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Clara," said a voice she didn't recognize, low, calm male. "You need to stop digging." Her stomach dropped. "Who is this?" "Walk away from the basement," the voice continued. "This isn't about your husband anymore. It's bigger than that." "Did you hurt Ethan?" she demanded. Silence. Then a click, the call ended. She stared at her phone, pulse roaring in her ears. Whoever that was, they were watching her. She looked around the basement, eyes scanning every corner. The air vent, the single dusty window, even the ceiling pipes. Any of them could hide a camera. Her sense of safety evaporated. She pocketed the USB drive and rushed upstairs, locking the basement door behind her. Her hands shook as she typed a message to Detective Reese. "You said you'd keep me updated. Someone just called. They knew I was in the basement." No reply. Minutes passed. She stood by the window, watching rain streak the glass. The neighborhood looked normal, too normal. Kids' bikes leaned against fences. A mail truck rumbled past. But Clara felt the wrongness pressing in like invisible hands. Finally, her phone buzzed. A reply from Reese. "Don't go back down there. I'm on my way." Her relief lasted only seconds, until another message arrived, this time from the unknown number. "He's lying." Clara's breath caught. Her reflection stared back from the glass. Wide-eyed, trembling, caught between two truths that couldn't both exist. Downstairs, she thought she heard the faint creak of the basement door. And then, silence. The first light of dawn bled through the curtains, turning the kitchen a dull silver. Clara sat at the table wrapped in a blanket, every nerve still humming from the night before. Reese was gone. The house was silent again, but the silence no longer felt like safety. It felt like someone holding their breath, waiting for her next move. She spread the note Ethan had left on the table, smoothing out the wrinkles. "Don't open it until you're safe." Safe didn't exist anymore. Her eyes drifted to the floor plan pinned to the fridge, her own architectural sketches of the house from years ago. The drawings she and Ethan had made together when they bought it. She pulled them down, laid them next to the note, and noticed something she'd never seen before. Ethan had added a small mark in pencil, a rectangle tucked behind the basement south wall. No label, no dimensions. Her pulse quickened. Downstairs, the air was still heavy with dust. She traced the marked section on the wall, comparing it to her own notes. The dimensions didn't match. The basement was 2 feet shorter on paper than in real life, exactly the size of the sealed patch. It wasn't just a repair. It was a hidden space. She grabbed her phone, switched to video mode, and started recording. "If anyone finds this," she whispered, "Detective Reese is involved in Ethan Moore's disappearance. There's something behind this wall. I'm documenting everything." Her voice sounded distant, like someone else's. She pried at the crack with a metal chisel until a chunk of cement fell away. Cold air rushed out, stale, but not like the rest of the basement. It smelled faintly of paper, old wood, and something electrical. She widened the hole enough to shine her flashlight through. Inside was a narrow cavity, almost like a closet, and in the center, half buried under dust, sat a small black box with wires snaking from its side into the brick. She hesitated, then reached in and pulled it free. The box was surprisingly heavy. The front had a single switch and a small red light, blinking faintly. Ethan's voice echoed in her memory. "Don't open it until you're safe." But safety was gone. She flipped the switch. A mechanical click sounded, followed by the faint hum of power. Then the overhead light flickered once, and a hidden panel slid open in the far wall. Behind it, neatly arranged on metal shelves, were dozens of files, each labeled with police case numbers. Her husband's name appeared on several. Others bore names she recognized from local missing person reports, cases Reese had investigated. Her breath hitched. Ethan hadn't been hiding a body. He'd been hiding evidence. She pulled out one folder, flipping it open. Inside were photos, receipts, signed reports, and copies of surveillance footage. Every page pointed to falsified investigations, all under Detective Reese's signature. At the back of the folder, she found a USB drive taped inside a sealed envelope marked insurance. The same handwriting as Ethan's. A floorboard groaned upstairs. She looked up, heart pounding. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Clara clutched the drive, stuffing it into her pocket. She turned off the flashlight, crouched low, and listened. Another step, then another. Whoever was up there moved toward the basement door. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. One message. "They know." The door handle turned. Clara slipped behind the newly opened cavity, pressing herself against the cold wall as the basement door creaked open. Light spilled down the stairs. Reese's voice floated into the darkness. Calm. Inevitable. "Clara, let's finish this." She held her breath, the USB drive burning in her pocket. The red light on the black box blinked once more, then went out. The beam of Reese's flashlight sliced through the dust-filled air, sweeping slowly across the basement. "Clara," he called softly, "you shouldn't have gone this far." She pressed herself tighter against the wall, trying not to breathe. The concrete was ice-cold against her back. Reese's steps echoed, measured, patient, like a man who already knew the ending. The light drifted past the workbench, lingered on the broken patch of wall, then swung back toward the stairs. He muttered something under his breath. A metallic click followed, the sound of his phone camera. He was taking pictures. Clara's heart thudded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Her mind raced through options. The USB drive in her pocket felt heavy, like proof of something too dangerous to exist. She had to get it out. But how? Reese turned to her direction. The light flashed across the open cavity for half a second. She froze. Then by some miracle, a loud thump sounded upstairs. Maybe the wind, maybe something shifting in the old house. He flinched, turned his light away, and went to investigate. She seized the moment. Crawling out silently, she stayed low, grabbing her phone and switching it to record video again. The footage would at least capture his presence here. She whispered, "Detective Reese is inside my home." Then she slipped up the steps, her bare feet making no sound on the worn wood. At the top, she eased the door open just enough to see him pause in the living room, scanning the shadows. His flashlight beam swept across the couch, the table, the front hallway. Her car keys hung by the door. She snatched them, heart hammering, and bolted. The storm had returned. Rain lashed across her face as she sprinted to the car. She didn't look back until she was halfway down the street. In the rearview mirror, her house stood in darkness except for one faint glow in the basement window. She drove until the city lights blurred together, until she found herself parked behind a 24-hour gas station on the edge of town. Inside, she huddled in the restroom, dripping rainwater onto cracked tiles. Her hand shook as she pulled out the USB drive and her laptop. The drive's metal casing was scratched, but the files opened immediately. Hundreds of documents, videos, audio logs. The first folder bore a name she didn't recognize, Project Sentinel. She clicked it. A series of police surveillance reports filled the screen, none of them official. They tracked private citizens' property sales, even campaign donations. And on the final page, a typed note. If exposed, initiate containment. Primary contact. R. Reese. Her stomach turned. Ethan must have discovered the operation, maybe even worked for them at first. Then he tried to stop it. She transferred the data to her cloud storage, set it to auto-share if her phone lost signal. Insurance. Ethan's kind of move. When she looked up, her reflection in the mirror startled her. Hollow eyes, hair plastered to her face, a person she barely recognized. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You can't hide, Clara. This time, there was a video attached. She hesitated, then pressed play. It showed the basement. Her basement, recorded from a corner she'd never seen before. A security camera feed. Reese stood in the middle of the room, speaking quietly into his phone. His words were faint, but one line came through clearly. Find a drive. She can't reach the press. The video ended. She stared at the dark screen for a long moment, her pulse steadying into something cold, deliberate. Fear hardened into purpose. She wiped her face, closed the laptop, and whispered to the empty room. Then I'll reach them first. Outside, thunder rolled over the highway. Clara started the car and merged into the storm, headlights cutting through the rain, toward the city, toward the truth Ethan had died protecting. City lights smeared through the rain on her windshield as Clara drove through the sleepless downtown. Each traffic light turned green just as she reached it, like the universe was pushing her forward. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the USB drive glowing faintly on the passenger seat like a talisman. She pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner she and Ethan used to visit. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed softly, the air thick with coffee and grease. A waitress with tired eyes nodded her toward a corner booth. Clara sat facing the door, habit now, every sense alert. Her laptop flickered to life. She connected to the public Wi-Fi, opened the folder marked Project Sentinel, and selected Upload All. Progress bars crawled upward. The files were too big. It would take time. She called the only person she still trusted, Lena Harper, a local journalist who had once interviewed Ethan about his architecture work. Lena answered on the second ring. Clara? It's 4 a.m. I found proof, Clara whispered. Reese. The missing cases. Everything. I'm sending you the link. Wait. Slow down. Are you safe? No. But I will be if this goes public. A bell jingled at the diner door. Clara looked up and froze. A man in a dark raincoat stepped inside, scanning the room. He wasn't Reese, but something in his stillness screamed police. Lena, someone's here, Clara murmured. Stay on the line, Lena said sharply. I'm calling a contact in the press office. The call cut out. No signal. The upload stalled at 73%. The man took a seat at the counter, ordered black coffee. His eyes flicked to her reflection in the window. Clara forced herself to breathe evenly, opened another window on her laptop to make it look like she was working. A waitress set the coffee down. The man didn't touch it. He stood, slowly, reaching in his coat pocket. Clara grabbed the USB drive and bolted. She sprinted through the kitchen, past a cook who shouted something she couldn't hear, and pushed out the back door into the rain. The alley was narrow, slick with water, trash cans lined like sentinels. Footsteps followed. Clara, the man's voice echoed. You're making this worse. She ran until the alley opened onto a street lined with flickering neon signs. A taxi idled at the curb. She yanked the door open and threw herself inside. Union Station, she gasped. The driver stared but hit the gas. The city blurred past. Lights, reflections, the heartbeat of engines. She clutched the USB drive like oxygen. At the station, she ducked into the crowd. Morning trains hissed and groaned, commuters filling the platforms. She spotted a small tech kiosk and hurried over. I need to send files, she told the clerk, handing him the drive and a slip of paper with Lena's email. Urgent for the press. The clerk frowned but nodded. Wi-Fi strong here. Shouldn't take long. Minutes stretched like hours. The crowd surged around her, the loudspeaker announcing arrivals, departures, everything but her fate. Then, a ping. Upload complete. Clara exhaled for the first time in hours. It's done. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. No name, just a sentence that froze her blood. Too late. They're already coming. A flash of movement at the far end of the concourse. Two men in plain clothes pushing through the crowd, one talking urgently into his sleeve. Clara slipped into the nearest train car as the doors chimed. The whistle blew, the platform slid away, and the city lights blurred into motion. She watched them fade through the window, a half-smile breaking through her exhaustion. For the first time since Ethan vanished, she wasn't running toward fear. She was running toward the truth. Somewhere above the storm clouds, morning was breaking. The train rattled through the outskirts of the city, steel wheels screaming against the wet tracks. Clara sat by the window, her reflection ghosting over the blurred landscape. Dawn had begun to break, not soft and golden, but washed out and gray, like the world itself hadn't yet decided whether to start over or burn down. Her clothes clung to her skin. The USB drive was gone now, surrendered to the press, but she still felt its weight in her pocket, phantom and heavy. Every time the train slowed, she expected to see police waiting on the platform. She tried to steady her breathing, staring out at the rain-slicked fields that replaced the city skyline. Her mind replayed the last few hours, Reese's betrayal, the chase, the warning text. Someone had said they were already coming. But for what? The files were out. What more could they take from her? A little boy across the aisle was drawing superheroes on a napkin. His mother smiled tiredly, her hand resting on his shoulder. Something about that image hit Clara hard. Once, she'd pictured Ethan sitting across from her on a morning like this, coffee in hand, teasing her about her messy hair, their future wide open. Now, there was just the sound of wheels on rails and the ache of what had been buried, both in the wall and in her heart. Her phone buzzed, startling her. A new message flashed on the screen, this time from Lena. It's out. Every file. News outlets are sharing it already. You did it. Clara exhaled, tears welling in her eyes. Relief, exhaustion, disbelief, all tangled together. She closed her eyes, whispering, Ethan, it's over. But even as she said it, a part of her knew it wasn't. The train began to slow near a remote station. Old, nearly deserted, a single figure standing beneath the flickering platform light. Her stomach tightened. The figure stepped closer as the train rolled to a stop. A uniform. No, not police. A man in a dark jacket, his posture familiar. When he lifted his head, her blood ran cold. Detective Reese. She ducked low in her seat. He shouldn't be here. He should have been detained already if the files truly went public. How could he? Then her phone vibrated again. Another message from Lena. Clara, be careful. The files you sent, some were encrypted. Someone tampered with them. Reese isn't listed anywhere. It's like he erased himself. Clara looked up and froze. Reese had boarded the train. He was moving car to car, methodically. Her mind raced. She slipped from her seat, heart hammering, and moved toward the rear of the train. Each compartment echoed faintly with the rhythmic thud of her steps. She caught glimpses of his reflection in the glass, calm, patient, unstoppable. When she reached the final car, she pressed her back against the door. The world outside was streaking by, fields, shadows, an occasional flash of lightning. The hum of the train was almost soothing until the door behind her slid open. Clara, Reese's voice carried over the clatter of wheels. You shouldn't have gone to the press. She turned, fists clenched. You lied to me. You said you were helping. I was. He stepped closer, hands raised slightly. But you weren't supposed to find a rest. You've put people in danger, including yourself. Her voice trembled. Ethan, did you kill him? He hesitated. A flicker of something passed over his face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. I didn't, but I couldn't save him either. Then who? He sighed, almost weary. You'll see soon enough. They won't stop until everything's clean. Not even I can stop them now. The lights flickered. The train lurched suddenly, brakes screeching. Clara grabbed the metal pole to keep her balance. Reese reached out. Stay back, she shouted, but before either could move again, the train slammed to a halt. The world tilted. Passengers screamed. A deafening crash followed, metal twisting, glass shattering. Then silence. When Clara opened her eyes, the car was on its side, smoke hissing through broken windows. She tasted blood. Her ears rang, but through the haze she saw Reese, motionless near the door. She crawled toward him, coughing through the smoke. His eyes fluttered open. Run, he rasped. They're here. Outside, through the cracked window, headlights glowed in the distance. A line of black SUVs approaching fast. Clara's pulse surged. She pulled herself through the broken glass, into the cold rain, and started to run. Rain poured in sheets, soaking the field where the train had derailed. Smoke billowed from the twisted cars, flashing red and orange in the light of the approaching SUVs. Clara stumbled across the mud, her breath ragged, one shoe gone, blood streaking her forehead. Behind her, metal creaked and hissed, the dying groans of the wreck. Reese's words echoed in her skull. They're here. Headlights cut through the smoke. Doors slammed. Shadows emerged. Men in black tactical coats, moving with precision. Not rescuers. Not police. Operatives. Clara ducked behind the remains of a carriage, heart hammering. The world had narrowed to sound and pulse. Footsteps crunching gravel, radios crackling, a voice saying, confirm the target. She can't leave the perimeter. She crawled low, mud caking her hands. The cold burned her lungs. Ahead, beyond the wreck, she spotted a small drainage tunnel leading under the tracks. Her only chance. But a groan stopped her. Reese. He was half buried under metal debris, face pale, one arm pinned. Blood darkened his sleeve. His eyes found hers through the smoke. Go, he rasped. Don't. I'm not leaving you, she whispered, prying at the twisted metal. It wouldn't budge. He coughed hard, forcing out words between breaths. Ethan tried to expose Sentinel. They caught him. He hid what he found in your house. The wall was his message to you. Tears blurred her vision. You knew. I tried to protect you. He managed a weak smile. Guess I failed. Footsteps drew closer. Flashlights cut through the smoke. Clara's panic sharpened into resolve. She grabbed a piece of jagged metal from the wreck, heavy, sharp enough to cut, and swung it at the debris again and again, until Reese was free. He staggered up, leaning on her. Together, they stumbled toward the tunnel. Gunfire erupted behind them, muffled, distant. A bullet sparked against the rail beside her leg. They crawled inside, the tunnel barely wide enough to move through. The roar of the rain outside faded into dripping echoes. When they emerged on the far side, the field stretched open, dotted with dark trees and a faint orange glow on the horizon. Clara collapsed to her knees, gasping. The files, they're public. Why are they still chasing me? Reese sank beside her, clutching his side. Because you have the one thing they didn't get. She frowned. What thing? He nodded toward her jacket pocket. The USB drive. She thought it was empty, wiped when she uploaded everything. I duplicated Ethan's final recording, Reese said, voice shaking. Didn't trust anyone else with it. She pulled out the drive, staring at it. The casing was cracked, edges slick with rain. What's on it? His eyes closed. The proof they killed him. Lightning split the sky. Hands trembling, she plugged the drive into her phone. A single video appeared. Ethan's face filled the screen, tired, bruised, speaking in a whisper. If you're seeing this, they found out I talked. Sentinel isn't a police program. It's private. They're using the system to blackmail, control, erase. Reese tried to help, but he's trapped inside it. Clara, if I don't make it, finish what I started. Clara covered her mouth, tears mixing with rain. The video ended with the sound of pounding on a door. Then static. Reese turned away, shame flickering in his eyes. Now you know. In the distance, sirens wailed, real ones this time. Clara stood, steady despite the shaking in her legs. You can come with me. Testify. Tell them everything. He shook his head weakly. No one will believe me. But they'll believe you, Ethan's wife. He pressed her hand over the USB. Make it mean something. The headlights were closer now, blue and red slicing through the fog. Reese leaned back against the wet grass, exhaling softly. For a moment, he almost looked peaceful. Clara ran. Through the rain, through the mud, toward the sirens and the light. By dawn, her statement and Ethan's recording were everywhere. News alerts, headlines, broadcast screens. Project Sentinel exposed. Names, documents, faces. A week later, Clara stood outside the wreckage of her house. The basement door was gone, the wall demolished by investigators. Beneath the foundation, they had found what remained of Ethan's body and the truth he'd buried to protect her. She whispered, "You never left the house," her voice breaking. Then she turned toward the sunrise, the first one that didn't feel like a lie. The storm had finally ended.